The world is full of unexplainable mysteries, and today we're going to talk about one, which is what in the hell is going on over at Warner Brothers and DC Films. We're going to talk about that and more on today's episode of the Geek Watch Podcast.
This is the Geek Watch Podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petrie.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 175 of the Geek Watch Podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me, as always, Geek Watch's own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petrie.
Hello, Brian.
And, man, we got some things to talk about today.
Crazy, yeah.
I do want to talk about, before we get started with that, because that may take a little bit of time, there were a couple of new trailers that came out. We got a second trailer for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Did we? Oh,
Yes.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, so we got a little bit more of an idea about some of the stuff that's going on. We got this great scene at the beginning with Miles and his mom, and we got to see a bunch of new Spider-Men. Spider-Mans? Spider-Man?
Spider-Mans.
Man, how does that work? How does that work? Spider-Man and some Spider-Womans, Spider-Women. This is getting too complicated. But with all these different Spider-Men that they showed, I'm not saying that I went like frame by frame and slowed it down and tried to pick out all of them.
You absolutely did.
No, I absolutely did not. Because thank goodness other people did.
Okay.
Other people did for me.
Okay.
And so there were a lot of different little Easter eggs, different Spider-Man versions from all over the place. Like for like a minute on Fox, there was a futuristic Spider-Man where he had a web cape. I don't know if you even remember.
No,
This was a long time ago, but there was that version in there. They even had a version of the Amazing Bagman, and this is a real deep cut. This was like, if you recall the whole symbiote story, when the symbiote was attached to Peter Parker to begin with, before he and the symbiote and Eddie Brock was a thing. And Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, was able to help him get that symbiote off of him. Well, he had to go home and his costume had just been pulled off of him, so he didn't have any clothing, so they gave him a Fantastic Four suit and a paper bag to put on his head. And so for one issue of the comic, he was running around with a Fantastic Four costume and a paper bag on his head. And that Spider-Man made an appearance in this trailer.
Okay.
But there were like a bunch of them. There was anime Spider-Man. There was the Japanese Spider-Man. There was a couple of versions of Spider-Woman and several of them. And so, like I said, you can go online. Nerdist, they did an entire breakdown. They went per Spider-Man to Spider-Woman. They went through all of them.
All right.
Or at least the ones that they could really tell. I mean, the PS4 Spider-Man costume was in. They went all out on it.
Yes.
So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And there was a trailer for a new movie called 65. That's got Adam Driver in it.
I saw a picture from it, but I haven't watched the trailer. It looks like Man vs. Wild to me. That's what.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what the movie was about, and then I saw the trailer. And so basically, the premise of the trailer is you have these humans in a spaceship that get hit by according to the trailer, an unregistered, undocumented meteor.
Okay.
And knocks them out of the sky, and they land on this very primitive planet.
It was Earth the whole time.
Yeah. That's why it's called 65, because it's 65 million years in the past. And these humanoids with sci-fi weapons are fighting dinosaurs.
Okay.
So by the end of the trailer, you find out, they're on primitive Earth.
Yeah.
So they're not humans, technically. They're human-like, they're humanoid.
Right.
But they're fighting on primitive Earth, dealing with dinosaurs.
I've seen that episode of Twilight Zone. I've seen that episode of The Outer Limits. I've seen that episode.
Yeah, well, here's the thing.
Of Mission to Mars.
The stereotypical, really bad sci-fi story that people continue to write over and over again, that get rejected from magazines, is this idea of a spaceship crashing on a primitive planet And it's got a man and a woman, and the man's name is Adam, and the woman's name is Eve.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And in this one, you have an adult male.
Driver.
Adam Driver's in it, yeah. And he manages to save this young girl out of, I guess there were some sleeping pods. And so there's a young girl who's maybe Eve, I don't know.
Yeah, but something about the classics, I still love it. It's the same as the trope of an alien comes to Earth to observe us and then gets corrupted by our earthly ways. I love that. Resident Alien, Rocky Horror Picture Show, Man Who Fell to Earth, Starman. I love all those. So I'm looking forward to it.
My Favorite Martian.
My Favorite Martian, yes.
Mork and Mindy.
Mork and Mindy, of course. It's a great trope, and one isn't any different. So I can handle this. It's 65.
Yeah, it's called 65.
65, okay.
And I would not be surprised if it one day becomes reported this entire movie started out with somebody in Hollywood saying to somebody else in Hollywood, I bet you can't, ... So that may just be the situation, but I don't know. But this weekend, we get the new Avatar movie finally coming out.
Okay.
Now, you don't go to movies, or at least you don't.
Yeah, not really. Mm-mm.
You're not the biggest fan of going to crowded theaters,
Right.
although finding a crowded theater these days is not an easy.
Yeah, it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, it's not an easy task
Is it
anymore.
going to be a simultaneous release, streaming and theaters, or is it just theaters?
I think that the days of those are past.
Okay.
Because I think that, especially with Warner Brothers, they've gotten sued way too many times for this.
Okay.
Which we're going to be talking about that a little bit later, obviously. But yeah, I think that after both Warner Brothers and Marvel have paid money because of this releasing stuff on a streaming service, they're not really going to try to do stuff like that anymore.
Okay.
But what I have heard, and I haven't had a chance to go online and verify this, so I don't know if this is true or not, but I have heard more than one place that if this movie doesn't clear $2 billion, it's not going to make its money back. $2 with a B, billion dollars. It must make two. Now, James Cameron has made movies that have made billions,
including Avatar. So, and we've waited a long time for Avatar. So, did it fizzle out and did it burn out, or have we got that anticipation to where we really were excited about it? We want it no matter what.
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's what we'll see this weekend.
I suppose so. Well, obviously, I don't see how it's going to make $2 billion in one weekend. Obviously, over the course of this movie, you've got however long it's going to be in theaters to make that $2 billion, but that's $2 billion to break even.
Right.
It's like you don't start seeing profit until after $2 billion. Yeah. So this is a big roll of the dice if that's true. It's to a point right now where I'm thinking, how would that even be possible? Why in the world would that happen? But at the same time, well, it's James Cameron. You've got studios right now are desperate for anything at this point. They're trying to get stuff out there. They really want to get a huge blockbuster, and Avatar should be that thing.
We would hope so from seeing everything. And James Cameron, he's famous for, with every movie he makes, he invents something, or his production team invents a new way of making movies or something out of the ordinary, something they didn't have before. I wonder if this Avatar 2 is going to give us that. Like Terminator 2 gave us the computer-generated morphing scenes. And
right.
Yeah.
One thing he's definitely said was that the CGI on this is going to be far more advanced than anything you've seen in anything.
Wow.
He actually, I think the way he put it was, it's going to make Thanos look like a cartoon.
Okay. All right. I'm excited.
Yeah. So we'll definitely see what happens. Now, we did get an announcement about who the companion for Doctor Who is going to be. Millie Gibson, known mostly for being on Coronation Street.
Yeah,
she's going to be playing a character named Ruby Sunday, and not like an ice cream sundae, like the day sundae. Ruby Sunday.
Okay.
And she'll be, of course, playing opposite of Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor, not 14th, 15th Doctor. And I've seen some things with her. They did a TV special like they used to do with Introducing the Doctors, where they would do like an interview, and you have the actor walk out of the TARDIS, and so they did that with her. And there's been some things online. I've seen her and Shooty talking to each other and talking about the show and everything. And she seems friendly and happy and perky, and she's going to be a good companion, it seems like. Although I do have to say I am a little bit worried.
Oh.
Because she strikes me a little bit as Rose Tyler 2.0.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And normally that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, because obviously Rose Tyler is one of the most popular of the new Who
I love
companions.
Billy Piper.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But then again, we are, at this point, we are backtracking a little bit. And not that I'm upset about the fact that we're getting David Tennant back. And I certainly, even if I were upset about it, I would not say that to you because I know that's your doctor.
Yeah.
When they did Day of the Doctor and Tom Baker came out, spoilers, sorry, if you haven't seen it, and it was Tom Baker, I have to admit, a little bit of a tear in my eye,
Of
for
course.
sure.
It's like, there's my doctor, yes.
Yeah, that was mine, exactly. And so getting to see David Tennant back on the screen as a version of the Doctor, a good thing. I'm definitely not complaining about that. But certainly, and we've talked about this a bunch of times on the podcast, but there seems to be this idea with Doctor Who, we've got to backtrack. You know, we've gone off-road, and now we need to get back onto the road, which means that we've got to turn around. We got to retrace our steps and get the show back to where it was. And that
I just don't know, because in 2005, I really feel like they brought Billie Piper on kind of for her star power. You know,
yeah.
We need to get people interested in Doctor Who again, so let's get this pop singer on here to do a couple seasons with us. And then they brought Catherine Tate on, having this sort of star power, and I feel like that's where they were at that point in time. So now that they're bringing in pretty much brand new, fresh blood, if that could be where they're trying to go. We while we're backtracking, we want to have everything look fresh.
Yeah. Obviously, they're using as the companion someone who is very popular on an extremely popular show.
Okay, yeah, I don't know about
So
it.
because we're Americans.
Yes,
If it doesn't happen in
Americans.
America,
Of course
it never
not.
happened.
Never happened, no.
Right. If it didn't happen in America.
It's not real.
Exactly. But like I said, I do believe that it's a good idea to get back to a place where, you know, remembering what was great about Doctor Who. I would even go as far as saying back to Matt Smith, where they were drifting away from, I feel like, where the Doctor was, where they were making him more of a bigger character and more of a threat.
Very
and
dark.
making them dark. And certainly with Peter Capaldi, he started out like his first season, like really, really dark.
Yeah.
And they lightened him up and let him play the electric guitar, which was great. And there were some really wonderful moments with him.
Only we had got Hugh Lowry as the master during that same season. They would have been perfect together.
Yeah, I certainly see what you're saying there for sure. That would have been something to see. Although I love Missy. I thought that was a great.
Oh, she is great, yeah.
Michelle Gomez was amazing in that role.
Which you still haven't watched Doom Patrol, right?
No, not
Okay,
yet.
because she does fantastic on there. Madame Rouge. If you've read the comics or anything, that's who she plays.
Oh, well, perfect.
Yes.
Absolutely perfect. But going back to Doctor Who and this idea of backtracking, I think it's a good idea if you're trying to reestablish the show. But at the same time, you should only backtrack so far. You have to take it out of reverse eventually and put it into drive and go forward. Again, I hope it doesn't get to a place where we're just treading a familiar place. And really, these 3 specials with David Tennant are going to be what set the tone. And even though we are going back to David Tennant, we're not going back to the 10th Doctor. He's a completely...
Brand new.
Yeah. He's familiar, but he's not the same incarnation. He's not the same incarnation. So it's going to be, like I said, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I just hope that they don't backtrack too awfully much, because I want to see the show go forward, and that's what I'm hoping to see. But again, when we talked about this last week on the podcast, but they've already started filming, and so...
Either way, it's really excited because it's going to be on Disney, and we can watch it anytime we want. That's what I'm so excited about.
Oh, yeah.
Just pull it up and...
We got a little less than a year, but we're just going to count the months off, and then we'll get to see this soon.
Yes, we get to go back to What the Who.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I do want to talk about
The big old elephant on the internet today.
part of this huge, massive elephant that's stomping all over everything, to the point where I'm starting to get a headache about all of this and beginning to question. This was an existential problem for me.
Oh my goodness.
Over the last few days, because I'm like, how much insider baseball can this show do? And I wonder, this went back, and we've talked about this before, but going back to the days of the 90s and the beginnings of the internet and Ain't It Cool News, and just how much inside baseball do we really need to get into? But I can't help it. It's like when you're driving and there's a car wreck. I don't want anything bad to happen to anybody, but you slow down and you look.
You gotta check it out.
And there's just been a lot of this going on recently, and we touched on a little bit of it last week, and there's more that's developed since then. Mm-hmm. Specifically, let's start out with Wonder Woman, because we talked about last week this idea that they've canceled Wonder Woman. Then I started reading that it was like, oh no, that was Patty Jenkins. She walked away from it. They had given her some notes, and she was like, I'm not interested in those notes. I want to do the Wonder Woman that I want to do.
Well,
and supposedly she had sent an email that had the link to the Wikipedia page on character arc. And so I'm like, well, I guess we're going to have to talk about that next week. So I had that in the pocket. And then, but today they released, Patty Jenkins released it. I didn't walk away from nothing. So she's, I didn't walk away. They just basically told me there was nothing that I was going to be able to do to keep the job. Mm-hmm. That they are still planning on doing Wonder Woman, but without Patty Jenkins. And part of what she talked about online was that, because there was Rogue Squadron, she was going to be directing that. And they did this big video package about her directing it. And then suddenly you didn't hear anything about it. And so she said, when I started doing Wonder Woman 3, I went to them and said, hey, with Wonder Woman 3, I may have to put this on the back burner for a little bit. Is that going to be okay? And they said, yeah, just let us know when you're going to be available again. And supposedly Rogue Squadron hasn't been canceled, and now she's going to go back to it. Although nobody's announced a damn thing about any of it. Uh-huh. And also, not a DC Warner Brothers thing, but it looks like Kathleen Kennedy is no longer going to be the head of Lucasfilm. That she's just got a severance package and she's on her way out.
Wow. There's a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you see where this is.
A lot of turnover going on in.
Yeah, because everybody is in a panic right now and they don't know what's going on. Everybody's just like freaking out at this moment. What do? We just had this big superhero movie with The Rock and it didn't do what we hoped that it would do. And now we got to talk about, because again, at the end of the movie, we got Henry Cavill as Superman. Oh my God, they're going to bring Henry Cavill back as Superman.
The internet rejoiced.
Yeah.
Champagne popped everywhere.
For about 5 seconds. Right? And then today, Henry Cavill announces that he had a meeting. Yeah. And basically was told, yes, James Gunn is writing a Superman movie. And you're not in it.
Yeah.
Because he wants to write a young Superman movie. Mm-hmm. So, thanks, Henry.
Yeah, I mean, with all the different rumors and stuff, like, I'm sure that this, like, Witcher, Superman was not the only reason he left Witcher.
I hope that's the case.
Read somewhere that he didn't like the direction that they were doing the scripts, going, like, away from the movie or something like that. That was a part of his decision, but Superman was probably the biggest part. But then we lose him. What was the point of that? Now we've lost the Witcher and we've lost our Superman. And so a lot of memes have been going up about he could be our next James Bond. Like, okay. But I really enjoy him as Sherlock Holmes in the Enola Holmes films. So if they could give us a spin-off of that Sherlock, it's a period piece. I would really like that. It's not the same as Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes, but I like those too.
Or Sherlock.
Yes. Because that's in time, yeah. And we don't talk about Elementary, but
yeah, we do.
Johnny Lee Miller.
Yeah, we do talk about Elementary, but never online and always in deep dark corners.
In hushed tones.
Yeah.
So he's incredibly talented. He's not too hard on the eyes. I'm not worried about him getting whatever job he would want. But The fans wanted our Superman back. The fans wanted our Witcher. But we're not going to get that. But as far as he himself, he'll be fine. But it is a blow to the fans. And
well, the thing about it, too, is that you're now getting this feeling. It's real because of everything that's going on. You've got, of course, Henry Cavill announcing, that he's not going to be Superman. You got Patty Jenkins coming out and going, hey, this whole thing, this wasn't my fault. Mm-hmm. To a point where James Gunn even jumped online and said, hey, to be fair, all the interactions that we had talking to Patty they were very pleasant.
Yeah.
But now you have James Gunn trying to come up with this 10-year plan.
Are they starting from scratch? That's what it's sounding more and more like.
Yeah, it seems like that's what they're doing.
We're scrapping this Wonder Woman. Yeah, you're going to get Jason Momoa, but he's not going to be Aquaman. Yes, you're going to get Superman, but it's not going to be Henry Cavill. So where are we going? Are we going from tabula rasa, brand new? Is that what's happening?
It certainly seems like that's what they're planning on doing, but I would say that the biggest problem that our two CEOs are going to have to deal with is that they're still working on this 10-year plan, which if it starts up at 2025, we're looking at 2035 before we get to the end of this 10-year plan. They're putting all this stuff together, and then they got to go in front of studio heads and stockholders and sell this.
Justify it.
And justify all of it. And on top of it, right now it seems like that there's no rudder on the ship because you're getting just the Wonder Woman story. It just keeps changing direction.
Yeah.
But again, that's been the issue with Warner Brothers for a while because it didn't really seem like they knew exactly what they were going to do. And it doesn't feel like there's really a solid idea quite yet. But then again, still working on it. But obviously, James Gunn is busy writing a Superman movie. Mm-hmm. And also, he was talking about how he's wanting to bring all this stuff together. But the recent Batman movie that came out is supposed to not be a part of this new
Right,
DC.
It's going to be its own.
It's going to be its own thing. And and we're still getting
its own franchise.
Yeah, and we're still getting the Joaquin Phoenix, Lady Gaga Joker movie.
Yeah,
and that's not going to be a part of anything.
Right.
But then, how does the Suicide Squad weigh into all this? How does Peacemaker weigh into all this? What's really weird to me is I understand the reason why you want to go complete tabula rasa, but it is possible to keep certain aspects of the movies that worked, like Henry Cavill. It's still possible to make that stuff work. And proof of it is The Suicide Squad, which was a sequel, but not exactly, of a movie.
Reboot, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's certainly something that was possible and was something that James Gunn has done in the past. But why didn't they do that? Well, who knows?
Yeah.
Because as of right now, all we really get is speculation. But then again, like I said, I'm getting into a bit of an existential crisis because it's like, how worked up can any of us really get about all this inside baseball when honestly, right now, all we get is a lot of speculation.
Yep.
I don't know how much better it's gonna get. They're not going to lay out the entire 10-year plan in front of us because we'd just rather watch the movies. You just want them to tell you what all they're going to do? Of course not. But I'm waiting to hear what the Warner Brothers execs think about all this. We don't have any idea yet. What does worry me is that because this hasn't been laid out yet, it's a possibility. It's a real possibility exists that James Gunn is going to say, hey, this is what we want to do. And they go, nope. We're not feeling that.
It's like, come on, guys, you don't trust me? Guardians of the Galaxy, Peacemaker, just throwing it out there.
Well, yeah, but once again, we're at a situation where James Gunn, great director, and he might be an amazing sprinter. It's like he may be able to plan out a 3-movie series, obviously, with Guardians of the Galaxy. He's really good at that, but when you're dealing with 10 years worth of stuff and Is he
a marathon runner? Okay.
Can he run the marathon? Is he able to do this? Because he's never done that before. But again, a lot of the strength of Marvel has been the fact that they have been able to find people you wouldn't have thought at the beginning would be able to do something like that and be able to develop them, and they managed to be able to do this. James Gunn, nobody would have thought he could direct big movies like Guardians of the Galaxy until he got the chance to do that. But we also have to say he did that under Kevin Feige. So how much of that was James Gunn and how much of it was Kevin Feige? Now, he did the Suicide Squad for DC at a time when things were really shaky there. Mm-hmm. And Peacemaker was amazing. Yep. And enjoyed the heck out of that. So he could very well do that job. But he hasn't done it yet. And would Warner Brothers cut his legs out from under him right at the beginning? Well, it's not like they hadn't done that before with other people. And right now, all we have is a bit of speculation. But until we get something concrete, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see.
We shall see.
And with that said, we come to the end of episode 175. Thank you for listening, and tune in next time for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch podcast. For Mandy Petrie, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the Geek Watchers out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch podcast. If you enjoyed this program, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch podcast is a Hanging J production.